Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capital with Sophia and Greg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are so excited to be with you all here today. And we are going to go through two of the major bills. We've actually talked about quite a bit on different podcast episodes, as well as we've helped with a rally at the state capitol. Thousands of you have showed up. We've testified, we've pushed back on, we've written articles, and it's AB 495 and AB 727, two horrendous bills, some of the worst bills attacking parental rights and attacking children and their safety coming out of the California state capitol. Governor Newsom has unfortunately signed both of these bills. So we want to give you all, as parents, as grandparents, updates about what this means for California, what this means for your children, and potential next steps. So, Greg, AB 495, everyone's been chatting about it, talking about it. There's been amendments, there's been changes, but Newsom finally signed it into law. Where are we at on this bill?
Well, he signed it, so it's now going to go into effect next year. So, we've been trying to focus legislators and the press on the issues we have with part of the bill. Now, we don't have issues with all the bill, but part of the bill that we do have issues with regards something called the Caregiver Authorization Affidavit. It's right here. This is language right out of the bill, and I printed it off on a separate sheet. This is something anyone could print off, and they can make decisions about where a kid is enrolled in school, the kind of medical care they can get, and a parent does not have to sign this. And that is our biggest problem, that if parental rights mean anything, they mean that parents oversee the upbringing and raising of a child, means they make educational and medical decisions for them, and no one else can. So if there is a form out there that someone can fill out and make the same decisions, then that's violating parental rights if you have no say over who that person is. This form doesn't require that. So we protested a lot. We had thousands of people show up here, and we pushed back. They did change the bill a little bit. They removed where it said in this affidavit 3 different times that parents don't have to sign it, but they didn't put a line for parents to sign it. So is that much of a change? A little bit. And they also push back on part of this form. If you want to make medical decisions for a child, you have to be, it left an option, it leaves an option open that you have to be a relative, but relative loosely, 5 degrees of kinship, which includes all your second cousins on each side of somebody's marriage. Even if the person has been divorced or has died, that person can show up with one of these forms and start making medical decisions for a child. It also had on there previously that all you have to do is be a mentor to the child. I mean, you claim you're a mentor, right? You don't have to ask the parent if you really are a mentor. But that part was removed. So, but this form is still out there. And here's the unbelievable thing the governor did when he signed it. He actually put out a press release saying that AB 495 safeguards parental rights and authority. That is just a blatant lie. And it's hard to say that about a governor, but I don't know what else to say. This form does not include anything, a line for parents to sign. So how are they involved in picking a caregiver? So part of the issue with this bill has been trying to get the press to actually ask hard questions to the author of the bill and to push back. And so I did have one interview with ABC News here in Sacramento, where we got the reporter to actually push back a little bit. And I wanted to let you hear that interview. What you hope for a reporter is that they give both sides. Like, here's what the governor is saying, here's what we are saying, but ultimately you want them to get at the truth. And so I thought it was a better report than most. And so why don't you listen to it, and then we can talk about it.
Governor Gavin Newsom just signed a controversial bill that would allow relatives to step in as caregivers for children if their parents are deported. As ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen found out, one organization believes that this would endanger children. She's here to explain more.
Alex, opponents of this legislation say this would violate parental rights, but the bill's author tells me this does the exact opposite, and it's to protect children from enduring additional trauma as immigration raids continue.
We stood by our values in California, and we're protecting families every way that we can, especially now during this really scary time.
Assemblymember Celeste Rodriguez is the author of AB 495, recently signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom. It will create guidelines for schools and medical facilities during immigration enforcement actions and protect sensitive information like immigration status. This comes after the Trump administration started increasing immigration enforcement throughout the state.
It creates a new temporary joint guardianship in probate court to ensure that families can select someone they know and love and trust to care for their child, to care for that child in the event that they are absent.
The California Family Council, a Christian-based public policy organization, says there is already a working system in place.
But we already have something in place for this called the CPS. Like, if a child is left alone, you call the police calls social services, the child is picked up, and then a court will decide who best to take care of the child.
And the biggest issue with this new law, the caregiver's authorization affidavit. The California Family Council believes it violates parental rights. The organization says it has requested Assemblymember Rodriguez to add a signature line to the affidavit for parents to sign.
Read the affidavit. It does not require a parent's signature. So how can you say the parents are involved in picking who gets the child when they don't have to sign it? I don't understand. I went into their office, explained this to them, and they had no explanation for me.
ABC 10 asked Rodriguez about this criticism.
So the child care affidavit for the past 30 years has not required a parent signature.
Rodriguez says the lack of signature is in the event the child's parent is not present to sign or no longer alive, adding that this law is to ensure children are not left behind and are cared by someone they know and love. The California Family Council is now considering taking legal action against the state and encouraging school districts and hospitals to not give anyone access who presents the caregiver authorization form. Alex.
So, Greg, like you said, we were able to kind of hear both sides. We were able to hear what the author is pushing in the bill, but continues to disregard the attack on parental rights. Continues to disregard that at this point there's not a parent signature needed. And so can you walk through some of those claims she was making and just clarify, again, what's really happening here?
Right. At the beginning, she was talking about a court designating a temporary guardian. We have no problem with that. As long as a court's involved, we expect the court to oversee who gets the child based on parental rights. We never complained about that. It's the caregiver authorization affidavit. Why don't the parents have to sign it? And she said, well, they've never had to sign it for 30 years. Well, technically, she is right. This form has been around for a very long time. Actually, for 5 years, for a 5-year period, parents did have to sign it, but then that was removed again. Now, this is a form that we didn't know existed, right? And it's not being used very often without a parent signature, so it hasn't caused much of a controversy. But one of the reasons they wanted to update the form was that there were too many medical centers and schools that were not listening or believing in the authority of the form because the parent wasn't involved. And so their whole point of putting this form in there and updating it was to increase the authority. They increase the authority of someone else to designate themselves a caregiver without the parent. It's obvious all of our attorneys have been saying the same thing. We've actually done searches throughout the country to see if any other states have caregiver authorization affidavits. Some of them do, but they all require parents to be involved in signing off on who gets to be the caregiver. California's just been crazy to not involve the parent. And so I was at least happy that our side got, the reporter said what our biggest complaint, and you notice the author of the bill, simply didn't say, "Oh, I was wrong." She says, "Oh, well, that's how it's been forever." So yeah, so that's a big issue. And so right now we are working with some attorneys on, okay, what can school districts do? Because school districts can declare that they will not adhere to the caregiver authorization affidavit. So we are working on a policy where they will say, hey, we're not going to accept this form without a parent signing it, without it to be notarized. And that doesn't cost a whole lot of money. It's like $15 to be notarized. And it confirms that the parent is actually the one signing the form with an ID. We're also working on an opt-out form for parents. So what they do is they've got to make sure at your schools that your emergency contact list has plenty of people on it, and that it says you never want the school to accept a caregiver authorization form without your permission. And so we are working on some options that we're going to have for parents. And then we're also trying to work on ways we can change the law itself and get a legislator to introduce a bill that requires parents to sign a caregiver authorization affidavit and alleviate all these concerns that people have. So that's where we are with that.
Yeah, and as Greg said, as we're in the process of going through this, challenging it, getting you guys opt-out forms and things like that, just again, a quick summary of the different ways you can currently take action to protect your families, to protect your children. As Greg said, update those emergency contact lists, both at schools and medical offices, and make sure it includes only those adults you trust to make the educational and medical decisions for your child. We need to have you guys also submit written directives, just like Greg said, stating that no one outside your listed contacts is authorized to pick up or make decisions for your child. And at CFC, like Greg said, we're going to continue to work with our partners, attorneys, and Californians to overturn this unconstitutional law. So yes, AB 495 was signed into law. Update those emergency contacts, talk to the schools. We will start putting out more information for you all in the coming months and stuff. And so stay up to date, even though it's been signed into law. This is not the last we'll be talking about it, and we'll be keeping you guys updated on next steps. And Greg, I wish I could say, okay, that's the worst bill Newsom signed. No more bad bills to talk about. There is a boatload of bad bills that Newsom has signed, but we're focusing in on AB 495, which we just covered, and AB 727. Greg, you've testified in opposition to AB 727. We've seen plenty of others from the police department and such coming up and testifying in opposition to it. We've talked about it plenty on this podcast, but for anyone listening that maybe hasn't heard about AB 727, can you touch on maybe if they just read it real briefly, what it was, why it maybe wouldn't sound like that bad of a bill, and then why it really is a horrendous bill?
Well, listen, there are a lot of kids who are struggling in our society with thoughts of suicide, depression, anxiety, and we want those kids to have somewhere to go to talk to somebody and get help. A lot of kids are vulnerable, right? But where do they go to get help? Parents want to have a trusted adult, a trusted counselor, a trusted pastor, and you want to have oversight over who your child talks to. And so the schools have responded. Like the legislature, I think last year required that the national suicide hotline be put on the back of every student ID. So if you look at your student IDs, I think 7 through 12. Currently, there is a suicide hotline number on there, 988. But this year, 727 wants to add decided to add an additional hotline specifically for kids who identify as LGBT, and it puts on there a hotline put together by something called the Trevor Project. This is one of the biggest LGBTQ organizations in the country. They have like a $70 to $80 million annual budget. They are pushing ideology, this gender and sexual orientation ideology throughout the country. Their way of helping a kid who's struggling is to affirm, right? That is, the best way to make sure a kid isn't feeling terrible is to make sure they have a peer group that will affirm whatever gender they think they are and whatever sexual desires they are. They want their whole identity to be based on those two things. Obviously, Christians think that's a terrible idea. You don't want to base your identity based on your feelings, your natural occurring desires, which have been corrupted by sin. But we have a loving God who is interested in helping us to live with our whole identity based on him alone. But even if you're not a Christian, you should be concerned about the Trevor Project. And I had heard lots of complaints about this website in this organization, specifically because they encourage kids to go to something called the TrevorSpace. And the TrevorSpace is a mentoring site. And I want you to pull up the TrevorSpace website here. And this is how it describes itself. It says, find your community at the TrevorSpace. TrevorSpace is a welcoming online social community for LGBTQ youth between the ages of 13 and 24 years old. That's young teen to somebody in their 20s. With over 400,000 members across the globe, you can find support groups and make friends in a moderated online safe space intentionally designed for you. Now, I think any parent's alarm bells should go off a little bit when you see that you're trying to hook up depressed and teenagers who may be considering killing themselves, and you're putting them online with people from around the world, adults who you don't know who they are. And then to talk about what, right? And so I decided to pretend I was 13 and gender confused and see what would happen if I reached out to the chat line of the TrevorSpace. And it wasn't long before they forwarded me to go to the TrevorSpace. And so I signed up and I got access to all kinds of clubs. And right below, if you look online, you'll see some of these clubs. On the last slide, one of the clubs is called Calling All Teens with Strict Parents, right? And this club is to complain about your strict parents. And one of the topics was any tips for sneaking out. And so this particular post was about teaching kids how to sneak out from their parents' house without them finding out. So that's one of the ways they can bond with each other. But then there's other crazier things. I mean, go to the next slide here.
I just want to note, I mean, if you're first of all, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that, go ahead and head to our YouTube, Facebook, or X account, where you can actually watch. We're putting these pictures and the different things Greg is talking about up on the screen, so you guys can head over there to see it yourself. But I also want to note, Greg, first of all, you were able to sign up as a 13-year-old. There was no restrictions. There was no proving you were actually 13. And so your 13-year-old child, that means also your 9-year-old child could sign up and pretend they're 13 and old enough, quote unquote, old enough to be on this website. That also means that anyone of any age can sign up, pretend they're a different age, and start talking one-on-one with your children. But I also want to note that the age range they set is 13 to 24 years old. I just recently turned 25. I have no interest in being in a group with 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds to talk about things in regards to sexual identity, to have those private chat rooms. So the whole idea just behind this is beyond disturbing. But I really wanted to emphasize, Greg, that you were able to sign up as a 13-year-old, have an account as a 13-year-old, and not once did they check to make sure you weren't a grown adult. And so that means any grown adult has private access to your children. And in these disturbing clubs, like Greg, you were talking about, like these aren't just clubs like called the LGBTQ club. There's pansexual clubs, lovesick lesbians, polyamory club. Like that is how disturbing this website is. That is now going to be put on the back of your child's student ID, giving them complete access and information on how to get to something like this. And so I would just recommend when you go with your child to take their back to school picture, get their student ID, whatever it is, you get that ID from them and you Sharpie this thing out, you black it out, you make it so they can't see it because it is beyond disturbing. But I just really wanted to emphasize that, Greg.
Right. And maybe you don't know what a polyamory club is about. Well, polyamory is about forming sexual relationships with multiple people at the same time. And a polyamory family would be a family that has multiple men and women acting like a family and all having sex with each other. That's what polyamory is. And so if you look on the screen, I think we have a shot of it. But what kind of conversations are they having in the polyamory club? Well, here's one that we got a screenshot. The little headline is "Partners anyone?" Right? It's totally okay if you say no, but can you accept a 15-year-old? Right. So here's a 15-year-old looking for multiple sex partners. Right. And he's getting responses. So, and what else would you do in a polyamory club? I mean, it's a club based on your sexual desires, right? And so this is the peer support that the government is now endorsing. This is a peer support that is being offered to every 7th through 12th grader and all college students in all public schools. It's not private schools, although that was on the bill originally. We got them to take that off. But this is all your public schools. So your government is now, your governor has now put their stamp of approval on these type of discussions. Folks, we're not trying to fearmonger. We are trying to warn you that our government officials seem to have no moral compass anymore. They can't say no. They can't put boundaries on things, right? And we're not misinforming you. We are trying to inform you with the actual facts that we're finding. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we put up these screenshots, because we got this off the TrevorSpace, right? I'm not sure if you have any other slides, but
yeah, we just want to note too, another screenshot is when you go on to the TrevorSpace website, one of the first things that pops up is quick exit. And it says, you can see here on the screen, on a desktop computer or laptop, press the escape button 3 times to quickly leave our site. On a mobile device like a phone or tablet, triple tap anywhere to quickly leave our site. I just know, like any website that I go to, why would I need to quickly exit it or quickly leave it? And so they are literally teaching children that, hey, as you're on your laptop looking at this or you're on your phone looking on this, basically they're saying if your mom or dad or your grandma or whoever is in charge of you walks in and looks at what's on your phone, you can just triple tap to quickly get out of this page. Basically acknowledging that like they recognize that parents would not be okay with their children on this page, that this isn't a page that like you should be looking at, that you should be on. And like Greg said, we are not trying to just like be inflammatory about things. This is just the basic truth of what our government in California is now pushing, what it's encouraging children to go look at. And I just want to encourage you all to honestly share this podcast episode with any of your friends or family that have children, because sometimes we need to see it with our own eyes to think, oh my gosh, this is real. This is what's happening. This is what's being pushed on our children. And so you can also head to californiafamily.org. If you click learn more in articles, you'll see a full article that literally has all these screenshots we are showing. It does a deep dive into this information. Greg went through and wrote that and put it together in one place so you guys can see it. But it is disturbing what the government, what Gavin Newsom has now signed into law for children to have access to and be given information on how to get to something. And so, again, when a website has to tell a kid how to easily exit out of it, they know they are in the wrong.
Right. And I was not able to get the secular mainstream press to report on this. They I don't know what it is, but they don't want to speak out against the Trevor Project. We got several Christian and conservative organizations to speak out. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they need to hear from law enforcement, right? And so I got a letter from the Riverside County Sheriff, Chad Bianco, and he says that he had one of his members, his officers in his 40s, pose as a 13-year-old and then had immediate access to private chats with the users. And I'm quoting here, by referencing or indirectly legitimizing the TrevorSpace as a mental health support system, AB 727 opens a statutory back door to allow unvetted digital access to minors without parent notification or access. And then we have the Department of Orange County Department of Ed. They put out a letter warning Newsom and asked them to veto. And here's what they said. While we appreciate the intent of the measure, AB 727 will create significant, harmful, unintended consequences for California's already vulnerable LGBTQ student population. We invite your office to pursue TrevorSpace. We understand threats of dark thoughts and ideations, but respectfully submit that subjecting students to exploitation and trafficking while at their most vulnerable is a greater threat. See, this is the thing. These kids, when you are suicidal and depressed and you don't think anybody knows what you're going through or understands, you are at your most vulnerable point to be taken advantage of by the very people we should all be very concerned about. The predators look for the vulnerable. They don't go after the strong. Human traffickers go after foster kids. Why do you think that is? Because they are longing for someone to come alongside and say that they're loved, right? Hey, I'll take care of you. I'll be your boyfriend. You don't have to worry about anything more. I'll take care of you. And then all of a sudden they start asking them to, prostitute themselves. That's how it happens. So parents who are involved, those are the kids that predators don't go after. They go after those who don't have adults involved in the kids' lives, right? So this bill is unbelievably dangerous and irresponsible, and it wasn't because they didn't know about it, right? And sadly, we can't get the press interested in talking about these dangers. So, so we need more people speaking up, more people with authority, more people who actually are school board members and leaders of the community to speak out. Otherwise, it just sounds like, these crazy Christian conservatives, they're always exaggerating. They hope, everybody ignores us. So, but we're not going to, we're going to still speak up. Our commitment is to tell you the truth, to point you to the facts of why we're so concerned. I don't know what else we can do.
Yeah, and I do want to note that this TrevorSpace, the website, all that, it takes children to more than just talking about sexuality. If you're just listening in, I want to read you guys the different names of the clubs that we currently have up on the screen that the TrevorSpace gives access to. So not only is it talking about LGBTQ plus issues, you can join the Satanist Club, the Queer Muslims Club, the LDS Club, the Psychic Medium Club, the Witches of TrevorSpace Club, the Queer Christians Club, the Witchcraft Club, and the Anarchism Club. That's what they are influencing children to get involved with. First of all, like, why would we be like, hey, 13-year-old, here's access to this website. Do you want to join the Satanist Club or the Anarchism Club? But that is what is being pushed. That is what our governor signed into law. And that's what's now going to be put on the back of student IDs, ways to access this page. And so, again, I wish we were exaggerating. I wish we were making this stuff up, but it is so horrific, the stuff that they are pushing. So you need to be aware. And again, please visit californiafamily.org, click learn more, click articles, and you can see all the information on AB 727. You can see all these screenshots, and genuinely, you need to share with every family and friend you have in your life that has children, because they need to be aware of what is going to be put on the back of their student's ID. But with that, so that's kind of a recap on 495 and 727. But another issue that we have talked about a bunch on this podcast is the Save Girls Sports issue. And so it's really horrifying, the stories we have to hear from the female athletes and their families of what they're enduring, of what they're facing. It goes so much further than the court, than the field, than the track, and just losing a medal. Girls are having to deal with males in their locker room, males putting hands on their butts. It's horrendous. And so we at California Family Council had the honor of recognizing and celebrating some of the girls in the state of California that have boldly stood up for the protection of girls' sports, stood up for their rights. And I'm so proud of these girls, but it's important we recognize that they should have never been put in this position, that they should have never been forced to have to take a stand for their basic rights and their basic safety. But these girls, when they choose to stand out and say, I don't want a boy in my locker room, I don't want a boy on my sports team, this isn't fair, this isn't safe. I know it's the common sense thing to say. It's honestly something that I believe 90% of our nation agrees on. That does not mean it's an easy thing for these girls to say. They say it, and yes, do they receive tons of support? Absolutely. But then they deal with the dirty looks from students at school. They lose some friends. They lose some social media followers. They have that is a result of this. Then they get called the names like bigot and transphobe and all these things. And mind you, we're not talking about us. We're talking about girls as young as 13 years old. But we at our 2025 Life, Family, Liberty Gala had the honor of recognizing these girls and celebrating them and just giving them the opportunity to firsthand see that people stand with them and stand beside them. And so we just want to show you guys that clip. It's going to do a brief overview of each of the girls' little stories and situations. So let's check that out.
And tonight, we want to make it clear, we will continue this fight. But it would not be possible without the brave young women who have spoken up, often at a great personal cost. So, it is my deepest honor and privilege to welcome these girls to the stage. Hadil Hizame and Alyssa McPherson, Southern California high school volleyball players who are suing CIF, their school district, and the California Department of Education after officials forced them to share teams and locker rooms with a male athlete, ignoring repeated reports of butt tapping, sexual harassment, and unsafe conditions. Caitlin Slavin and Taylor Starling, Southern California high school cross-country athletes who filed a federal lawsuit against California and Riverside Unified School District after Taylor lost her spot to a male runner, And both girls were compared to wearing swastikas for simply wearing Save Girls Sports shirts. Olivia Viola and Reese Hogan, Southern California track and field athletes who continuously faced having to compete against a male runner through CIF state and had podium spots stolen from them. Celeste Deist, Central California track and field athlete, forced to share a locker room with a male and then shamed by her coach and school board members for crying about the injustice. Madison Shaw, Gracie Shaw, and Brielle Golly, Northern California junior college volleyball players who lost their starting spots to a male and filed Title IX complaints after being made and forced to share both the court and locker room space with the man. We have Janice Barragon, Brislielda Lopez, Ariana Macedo, Norma Macedo, Ava Sophia Maxwell, Krista Rosora, and Amy Villaria, Southern California high school volleyball team, who said no to having to compete against a male, forfeiting a season game over it. We have Leslie Ledesma, a brave Southern California junior who led a student walkout after encountering a male in her girls' school restroom. We have Kylie Wool and Brooklyn Hendricks, courageous eighth graders, 13-year-old girls who organized a student walkout when part of their school board tried to label them mentally ill because they did not want to undress next to the male that was in their 8th grade locker room. So tonight, we don't just see athletes and girls, we see warriors. These young women have endured humiliation, loss, and injustice. Yet, they chose courage over silence. They stood up when adults failed them. They fought back when their opportunities were stolen. And they refused to be shamed for defending truth. So please join me in celebrating and thanking these incredible girls for their bravery, their resilience, and their unwavering stand.
And so that standing ovation continued to go on for about like another 30 seconds to a minute. And if you, again, are just listening in the video, you kind of see the girls, they're standing there, they're holding little plaques we gave to them. And, you know, they're up on stage. They didn't know they were going to go up on stage. They didn't know we were going to be recognizing them like that. And so, you know, they're kind of nervous looking around. There was about 360 people in the room. That's a lot of people to be staring at you, especially, again, some of the girls were 13 years old up there. But you watch when the crowd like gets up and stands, give them standing ovation, like all of the girls, like maybe their scared face or their plain face or whatever turns into smiles. And that moment for me meant the world for those girls to see that people have their backs, that people are grateful for what they are doing. And so there's still a lot going on in California with boys and girls sports. CIF is still continuing to not protect girls sports. The California Department of Ed is continuing to not protect girls sports and spaces. The California legislature this year killed 2 bills on a party line vote that would have protected girls sports and spaces. So the fight is not anywhere near over. And I know it's sometimes very easy to call out the boys, call out the ugliness, and we need to call out and let people know what is happening, but we need to make sure we are celebrating these girls and encouraging them. And so when you guys see a post about a girl speaking at a press conference to save girls sports, and maybe she's 15 years old and has never done anything like this and has now been put in this situation, or these girls on live TV for the first time ever and different things, just make sure to leave a comment. Just let them know that you stand with them, you support them. I mean, these girls have social media, they're on it, they're seeing the posts, they're seeing the mean comments. So let's just make sure to flood any posts about these girls to encourage them. So that way they see that so many people are with them. With
Right.
that, Greg, is there anything you want to add?
Well, you know, it'd really be good to show that we're with them is that adults would make the decisions to stop letting it happen. Folks, the polls are in our favor, and yet we put up with our elected officials not going along with what we think. That's not right. That's wrong. But for whatever reason, not enough adults are willing to stand up and put a stop to it. You say, well, what can I do? It's against the law. Well, if your child is on a girl's team, you say, well, she's not going to compete against boys. I mean, if all the parents would do that, say if there's a boy on another team, they're not playing. If that was the general consensus, this thing would stop. It would not last very long. If coaches would do that, if school board members would decide they're not going to let it happen, if people show up at rallies, if legislators are overwhelmed with people showing up at their offices, if pastors would encourage their congregation to stand up for kids and to simply peacefully voice their thoughts publicly about this. Even the governor knows it's unfair, and yet we keep doing it. Why is that? Why does it keep going on? Well, because there's not enough adults willing to say no, or because it might affect their job, or there might be some sacrifice involved, or it might, so sadly, I mean, we are encouraging these girls to speak up, but why are they the ones that have to speak up? I mean, next year, we want to honor all the adults that spoke up and maybe got fired or for doing the right thing. I mean, we have some teachers that have done that, and they did get fired, and they got lost. They won their lawsuits. I don't know. So, folks, we got to stop saying that we're helpless. We're not helpless. We're not.
Absolutely. And I guess with that, Greg, a call to action to those of you watching, if you're like, oh, I'm so mad about this whole girls, sports, and spaces thing, take that anger and let's do something with it. And so if you follow California Family Council on social media, if you go to californiafamily.org and sign up for our newsletter, we're constantly sending out information about different rallies, different press conferences, etc. But some easy action steps you guys can all take right now is visit xxonly.org, a project of California Family Council, and you can sign the petition urging CIF to follow Title IX. We're at over 20,000 signatures, and that makes a difference when CIF sees that this many people are signing, urging them to follow Title IX. You don't have to just live in the state of California to sign. You can sign from anywhere. Also, look into getting Save Girls Sports t-shirts, Save Girls Sports gear pretty soon. I guess we'll let you guys in on a little sneak peek that pretty soon we will be selling XX only Save Girls Sports shirts on the California Family Council page where you guys can order them online. Get those shirts and wear them to every sporting event you go to, even if there's not a male competing. Wear it, spark up conversation, speak out. And then again, if your daughter is in this situation, do not put her in the position where she needs to decide whether she's going to play or not. She might be mad at you in the moment, but do not let your daughter step on a field or a court with a male. Why would you let your daughter be put in a position at the risk of being injured? No game, no win, no finals is worth the risk of being injured due to a male. And so tell your daughter, I'm sorry, but I'm going to make this decision for you, and you're not going to play in that game. But I urge you to still go to the game and take a knee. So if you're in the starting lineup, the second the whistle blows, just go take a knee. Make a scene of it. Make it clear that you're not going to play with a male. Because like Greg said, the adults need to step in sometimes and make decisions for girls because it's a really hard decision for a girl to make at times. And honestly, if we don't start saying, no, we're not going to play, if the girls don't start saying, no, we're not going to play, this issue is going to continue. So urge your daughters not to compete in that game, in that tournament, or whatever it is with a male. We need to stand up. We need to say no more. But with that, we will see you guys all next time.